Welcome to Commerce with Karanta Lane, your complete academy for business, accounting, and economics.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's explainer. You know, when we hear the word economics, it's super easy to just picture endless spreadsheets and rigid numbers. But the truth is, it's actually way less about math and much more about a really delicate, fascinating balancing act. What we're really looking at is a constant, everyday tug-of-war between public needs and private ambitions.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a massive fundamental question. How exactly does a society decide who gets what when resources are limited? Right? This is the ultimate dilemma of scarcity. We as humans have all these competing wants and needs, but the factors of production, our land, labor, capital, and enterprise, well, they are strictly limited. There's only so much to go around.
So here's our roadmap for making sense of all this today. We're going to start with the three foundational questions of scarcity. Then we'll examine the different economic systems out there, compare the public and private sectors, look into what actually drives business aims, and finally, we'll wrap up by exploring how we fix market failures.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the three questions, solving scarcity.
When we follow the path from scarce resources all the way to households, it turns out every single society has to answer three fundamental questions. Number one, what gets produced? Because resources are scarce, every choice has an opportunity cost. So, if we choose better rail services over, say, more public hospitals, we're giving up the value of that next best alternative. Number two, how is it produced? Are we going to use labor-intensive methods just to create more jobs, or rely on capital-intensive machinery to boost efficiency? And number three, who actually gets what is produced? Is it reserved only for those who can afford it, or is it freely available to everyone?
Moving right along to Section 2. Economic systems, meeting the contenders.
Now that we have our three basic questions, how a society answers them dictates its entire economic structure. When we compare our main contenders, the contrast is honestly pretty stark. Over on one side, you have the free market system. This is entirely driven by private ownership and the price mechanism. It answers the how to produce question by finding the absolute, most efficient, profitable way possible, and it produces strictly for those who have the cash to afford it. But then, way over on the opposite side, we have the plan system. In this setup, the public sector does the producing to make sure everyone has a job, acting in the best interest of the public so that things are actually available to everyone. But here's the thing. The vast majority of the real world actually operates right in the middle. And that brings us to the mixed economy. This is the ultimate arena where these two opposing forces actually collaborate. It's a blend of the free market and a planned economy, featuring both private and public sectors working side by side. In a mixed system, individuals, private firms, and the government all own different factors of production. Great real-world examples of this include the UK, Germany, and Japan. That brings us to Section 3, public versus private sectors, the sector showdown.
Let's look at the two main players battling it out here inside our mixed economy. The private sector is owned by private individuals, plain and simple, and its primary goal, maximizing profit. This intense drive for profit forces it to be highly productive and super efficient to minimize any wasted resources. The public sector, on the other hand, is owned and controlled by the government. Its goal isn't to make a profit at all, it's to provide a service. It is funded by our taxation to supply essential goods, think emergency services, schools, and national defense, making sure these things are adequately supplied for the overall welfare of society.
And remember, ownership directly dictates control. In the private sector, it's a sliding scale. You have sole traders where one single owner calls all the shots, but is also legally on the hook for all the business debts. Then you have partnerships that share that control. Move up to private and public limited companies, and control shifts over to appointed CEOs or boards of directors acting on behalf of shareholders. Now contrast all of that with public sector firms. These are controlled by government-appointed boards and entirely funded through your taxes. Totally different ballgame.
Let's jump into Section 4. Business aims. What drives a firm?
So, what actually motivates these private businesses beyond just making money? Well, yes, for the most part, firms rationally aim for profit maximization. Profit is just total revenue minus total costs, right? To get more of it, they either try to increase their sales revenue or they really scrutinize their operations to decrease their costs. Alternatively, firms might aim for growth. They want to increase their market share and boost their output so they can benefit from economies of scale. Because at the end of the day, a growing firm is just a whole lot less likely to go under.
But hold on, because profit and growth really aren't the whole story here. In the short term, a lot of new firms focus entirely on one thing: survival. Did you know that generally as much as 25% of new firms fail in their very first year? It's tough out there. Just making it to year 2 is a massive victory. Furthermore, we're seeing an increasing number of firms launching with a social welfare objective. They genuinely want to tackle climate action or fight poverty. Obviously, they still need some profit to keep the lights on, but they willingly accept lower profits just to achieve those really essential social goals.
Alrighty, on to Section 5, Fixing Market Failures, the Plot Twist.
Here is where we hit a bit of dramatic tension. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of market failure. This happens when free market activity results in a less than optimum allocation of resources from society's point of view. See, even though the free market is highly efficient, if we just leave it completely unchecked, it can naturally lead to some pretty awful outcomes, like severe inequality or terrible environmental degradation.
So to really ground this abstract concept, let's look at how it plays out in reality. Without help, the free market naturally overproduces demerit goods. These are things that are actively harmful to consumers or society, like gambling, excessive alcohol, or sugary drinks, simply because they are highly profitable. On the flip side, the market actually underconsumes and underprovides merit goods. These are things that are incredibly beneficial, like education and healthcare, usually because consumers might not fully recognize their long-term private benefits, or quite frankly, they just can't afford them. And guys, this is exactly why the mixed economy is so absolutely crucial. The public sector has to step in with government intervention to balance the scales. They do this mainly by taxing to raise revenue. They'll regulate and heavily tax those demerit goods to bump up their prices and limit how much people consume. Then, they take that revenue and use it to actively provide those essential merit goods. They also redistribute income by creating a welfare system with things like unemployment benefits and public health care. Essentially, they step in to fix the market's failures. Before we finish up, I really want to leave you with this incredibly valuable insight. The aims of a firm can and do change over time. Imagine a wildly successful firm that has maximized profits for decades. Suddenly, they get hit with a massive unexpected shock, like the COVID-19 lockdowns, for example. Almost instantly, they have to switch their entire objective away from profit and purely toward survival. A mixed economy isn't just some static concept you read about in a textbook. It is a living, breathing system that is constantly reacting and adapting to the real world. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If private firms are constantly shifting their aims just to survive and grow in a super turbulent world, how dynamically must government intervention adapt to maintain that delicate balance? The tug-of-war between private efficiency and public welfare is never truly over. It's a constant, everyday negotiation. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the mixed economy today. Keep questioning the systems around you, and as always, keep learning.
Thanks for watching Commerce with Karachalain. Don't forget to subscribe for more lessons in business, accounting, and economics. Keep learning smart and score that a star. I'll see you in the next video.